a very brief history of development. To understand the history of development, it's important to go back about 200 years to Great Britain and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Basically, that's when people figured out how to turn the Earth's natural resources into a bunch of stuff for other people to buy. Important fact, the Industrial Revolution was born on the back of colonialism with far-ranging consequences for the developing world. But we'll talk about that later. Back to our story. Turns out the Industrial Revolution was the catalyst for about 200 years of unprecedented global economic growth. There was just one problem. It wasn't global. You know the saying, a rising tide lifts all boats? Didn't happen. In fact, it looked like two entirely different tides, one for the developed world and one for the developing world. Now, by the 1950s, the disparity between these two tides was so severe, the developed world finally took notice and decided something had to be done. And so, from the 1950s to the 1990s, trillions of dollars were spent trying to get this tide to rise. And once again, it didn't happen. There were a lot of reasons why, of course, including corruption, conflict, and that egregious colonial past we talked about. But mostly it didn't happen because the people in this boat never asked the people in this boat how to spend the money. You see, they thought they already knew what was needed. They were wrong. So at around the turn of the millennium, the developed and developing world got together to take a different tack. They concluded the problem wasn't the tide. Turns out there was only one tide after all, but that the difference lay in the boats. And so the question became, how to work together to build the developing world a better, stronger boat. The answer, the Millennium Development Goals, a set of 8 interrelated objectives around poverty, education, gender equality, child and maternal health, disease, the environment, and partnership, all designed to help the developing world get shipshape by the year 2015. Now, the goals weren't perfect, and their execution hit some rough waters, but on the whole, there's been amazing progress. Between 1990 and 2012, global poverty has been cut in half, from 50% of the developing world's population down to 22%. Under 5 infant mortality rates nearly cut in half, from 90 out of every 1,000 children down to 48. And the percentage of people without safe drinking water more than cut in half, falling from 24% of the world's population to 11%. Progress? Absolutely. But with more than 1 billion people still living in extreme poverty, the finish line is a long way off. And that's why in 2015, the international community launched the Sustainable Development Goals, merging for the first time the world's economic, social, and environmental agendas to finish what the MDGs started by the year 2030. And now, the goals are for everyone, developed and developing nations alike, because it turns out that poverty, climate change, and growing economic and social inequality are all interconnected, creating powerful undercurrents that threaten to pull down all of us. Because in the end, not only is it all one tide, it's all one boat, and we will either sink together or sail together. And your job, my job, everyone's job, is to make sure we sail.